Imagine you're living in a world where you aren't allowed to own land. You aren't allowed to trade in the main square. In fact, you're locked behind a gate every single night at 10 p.m. This was the reality for Mayor Amschel Rothschild in the mid-1700s. He lived in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt, Germany, a cramped, dirty street called the Judengasse. Most people would look at that situation and see a dead end. Mayer saw an opportunity, because while the rest of the world was obsessed with titles and land, Mayer was obsessed with something much more portable, something that didn't care about borders or gates. Money. Today, the name Rothschild is a lightning rod for every conspiracy theory on the internet. People say they own the weather. They say they run the central banks. They say they're worth $500 trillion. Most of that is nonsense, but the true story? The actual history of how one family went from a cramped house in a ghetto to literally financing the map of modern Europe? That's actually more insane than the conspiracies. Mayer Amschel didn't start as a billionaire. He started as a coin dealer. Think of him like an 18th century pawn shop owner. He'd find rare, ancient coins and sell them to wealthy aristocrats. But Mayer was a genius at networking. He realized that the rich didn't just want coins. They wanted someone they could trust with their mess. Specifically, Prince William of Hesse. This guy was one of the richest men in Europe, mostly because he rented out his army to other countries like a high-end mercenary service. Mayer became the prince's court Jew, a middleman. He handled the money, the transfers, and the logistics. But Mayer knew that a single person is a single point of failure. If he died, the business died. So, he did something that would change history. He had 5 sons, and he didn't just treat them like children. He treated them like 5 regional offices of a global startup. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt. Nathan went to London. James went to Paris. Salomon went to Vienna. And Carl went to Naples. The instructions were simple. Work together. Share information. And never, ever let an outsider see the books. They weren't just a family anymore. They were the world's first multinational investment bank. While all 5 sons were successful, the real main character of the Rothschild story is Nathan. He landed in London with almost no English and a massive chip on his shoulder. Nathan realized something that remains true today. In finance, information is more valuable than gold. If you know the outcome of a war 24 hours before the king does, you can make a killing. So, the Rothschilds built the Rothschild Communication Network. They had private couriers, fast boats, and legendary carrier pigeons. While the British government was waiting for official reports, Nathan's pigeons were already landing on his balcony with the latest scoops. Then came 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. The entire fate of Europe hung in the balance. If Napoleon won, the British economy would crater. If Wellington won, British bonds would skyrocket. The story goes, and it's a bit of a legend, but the impact was real, that Nathan was the first man in London to know Napoleon had lost. He knew it before the government. He knew it before the press. What did he do? He didn't run out and buy everything. He started selling. He made it look like he knew something bad. The market panicked. Rothschild is selling. Wellington must have lost. Everyone dumped their bonds. The price crashed to the floor. And at the very last second, Nathan stepped in and bought the entire British economy for pennies on the dollar. By the time the official news arrived that Napoleon was defeated, Nathan was the richest man in the world. He didn't just own money. He owned the debt of the world's superpower. Throughout the 1800s, if you wanted to do something big in Europe, you had to call the Rothschilds. Need to build a railway across France? The Rothschilds did it. Need to dig the Suez Canal so Britain can reach India faster? The Rothschilds did it. Need to fund a war against your neighbor? The Rothschilds did it. They became the bankers to kings. But here's the clever part. They didn't just lend money to people. They lent money to governments. When you lend money to a person, they might run away or die. When you lend money to a country, you own their future tax revenue. It's the ultimate low-risk, high-reward play. They were so powerful that they actually prevented wars. In the 1830s, when various European powers were itching to fight, the Rothschilds simply refused to lend them the money to buy gunpowder. No money, no war. For a few decades, 5 brothers in 5 different cities effectively ran the world's economy through a private WhatsApp group made of pigeons and letters. So, if they were so powerful, why don't they run the world today? Why aren't they on the Forbes list alongside Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? 2 words, the 20th century. The Rothschilds were built for a world of kings and empires. But the 1900s brought 2 things they weren't prepared for: World Wars and the United States of America. When World War I and II hit, the Rothschilds' assets were in the wrong place. Their palaces in Austria and France were seized by the Nazis. Their massive estates were bombed. But more importantly, the world moved away from family banking. Modern corporations like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs started appearing. These weren't run by 5 brothers. They were run by thousands of anonymous shareholders. They were too big for even the Rothschilds to compete with. Furthermore, the Rothschilds had a strict rule: only family members, and specifically males, could be partners. This nepotism-only policy was their greatest strength in the 1700s because they could trust each other. But in the 1900s, it was their greatest weakness. You can't always guarantee that the great-great-grandson is going to be a financial genius like Nathan. Sometimes the heir just wants to collect wine and racehorses. They didn't go broke, far from it, but they stopped being the only bank. They became just another very wealthy, very private investment firm. So, let's talk about the internet's favorite boogeyman. Just how rich are they? If you trust a quick Google search, you'll find wild numbers like $500 trillion. That's pure fiction. 2 centuries of inheritance laws and hundreds of heirs have done what no revolution could. They fragmented the fortune. Instead of one giant mountain of gold, the Rothschild wealth is now a mountain range of smaller hills scattered across the globe. We're talking world-class vineyards, boutique investment banks like Rothschild & Co., and enough high-end art and real estate to make a museum jealous. They aren't ruling the world, but they are definitely in the room when the world gets sold. If 2 corporate giants are merging in Europe, there's a good chance a Rothschild is holding the pen. But the puppet master theory? It's a bit of a stretch. The real Rothschild secret wasn't magic, secret societies, or lizard blood. It was unity.